He could shoot so well that he was assigned to an elite unit. He deserted more than once, was arrested, court-martialed, and spent time in a military prison in Richmond. He had fingers shot off of both hands. He was captured by General George Armstrong Custer and served time as a POW. This is the story of Private William Tucker. Hey everybody, this is Colonel Carson with Family Tree Nuts, and recently I was working on a family tree for a client and came across this amazing story of his fourth great-grandfather. The more that I discovered about him, the more that I knew that I wanted to share his story with all of you. Besides doing genealogy work, we make history videos for our YouTube channel. So if you like videos like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell so you get notified when we post new videos. Now, on to the story. William Henry Tucker was born on Valentine's Day, 14 February 1827 in Botetourt County, Virginia. He married Salina Crawford in 1856, and by 1860 he lived in the valley of Barber's Creek in Craig County, Virginia, with 2 baby girls. He had a decent start to life before the war, and his real estate was valued at $1,250 and his personal estate at $800, which is definitely above average for the time. As you will soon see, the upcoming war had a tremendous impact on him in many ways. William heard Virginia's call and enlisted in Independence, Grayson County, Virginia on 2 September 1862. He was originally assigned to the 51st Virginia, but his commander soon learned that he was a great shot and he was transferred to the elite 30th Battalion Sharpshooters. Military life must not have been what he was expecting, because just 4 days after enlisting, he is listed absent without leave on 6 September 1862. I remember my first few days in the Marine Corps, and I can definitely relate to what Private Tucker was thinking. He must not have stayed gone long, because soon he was in the hospital, and from there, on 5 October 1862, he took off a second time and was listed as a deserter. William either returned on his own or was caught and arrested, because on 9 June 1863, 8 months after being listed as a deserter, he was court-martialed. He was sentenced to serve time in the military penitentiary in Richmond. Just a few months later, on 31 August, he was released from prison by order of the Medical Executive Board, possibly because of the conditions of the prison, or the Army just needing as many men as they could get. Now, after taking off twice and even serving some time in military prison, you'd think that young William was in it for the long haul of the war, right? Well, apparently not, because at some point between 1 September and the end of the year, William deserted yet again. In December, he claimed that his horse was stolen by Yankees during General Averill's raid. He later, in 1871, applied to be reimbursed $200 for the loss of his horse. A few weeks after his horse was taken, he was arrested on 8 January 1864 and returned to his unit by a Mr. Isaiah Lundy, who was paid $30 for his service. It is not known if William was punished for deserting again. William was back in the hospital on 25 April 1864 for conjunctivitis, which is pink eye. He was at General Hospital number 13 in Richmond. Then on either the 2nd or the 3rd of June 1864, while fighting in the Battle of Cold Harbor, he was severely wounded when fingers on both of his hands were shot off. In William's words on his 1890 application for a soldier's disability pension, he said, "I was in the fight in the lines of General Lee's army near Gaines' Mill." He said he suffered a gunshot wound in the left hand, destroying 2 fingers, and 2 on the right hand as well. He mentions later on his statement that part of both hands and fingers have been lost. His pension application is signed by his own hand. It's always interesting to see a signature of your own fourth great-grandfather. No records have been found of him missing time in the hospital again, but it certainly can be assumed that he did. The final stage of the war for William was on March 2nd, 1865, just a few weeks before the war unofficially ended at Appomattox. William and his unit were under the command of General Jubal Early, and fought against Union generals Philip Sheridan and General Armstrong Custer at the Battle of Waynesboro. William's entire unit was captured or destroyed, and Custer pursued them in retreat. William was made a prisoner of war. The officers were sent to Fort Delaware, and the enlisted men were sent from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, to Point Lookout, Maryland. At Point Lookout prisoner of war camp, he was recorded to be 5 foot 6 inches tall, with a fair complexion, dark hair, and gray eyes. Records like this give us an awesome snapshot of what our ancestors looked like. He took the oath of allegiance on 21 June 1865 and was finally released from his military service, and he returned home. In 1890, William applied for a soldier's disability pension and was awarded $15 a year. Another interesting note about William in the Civil War is that through his mother, he was a second cousin twice removed of Brigadier General Elisha F. Paxton, who died while leading the Stonewall Brigade at the Battle of Chancellorsville. I wonder if he knew that he was a cousin of this famous general. The war had more than just a physical effect on William Turner. If you remember what I said earlier, before the war in 1860, his real estate was valued at $1,250 and his personal estate at $800. Well, after the war in 1870, his real estate was valued at only $500 and his personal estate only $200, much less than half of what it was worth before the war. We learned that the war had lasting effects on William physically, financially, and mentally, and likely impacted his family for generations to come. William lived the rest of his life as a farmer in Craig County, Virginia, until he died of Bright's disease in 1906. He is buried in Andrew Chapel, United Methodist Church Cemetery in Buchanan, Botetourt County, Virginia. His wife filed for a widow's pension in 1915 and was granted a pension of $30 a year. I also want to mention that it is extremely common for soldiers to desert in the Civil War, and they did so for many reasons. Often their enlistments were involuntarily extended, or they got news from home that required their attention, or sometimes the horrible conditions and helplessness that they felt with the war caused them to simply have enough. The fact that Private William Tucker deserted more than once does not reflect negatively on his character, value, or his manhood. It simply shows a very clear example of how desperate the war was for so many. Wow. Now we know the story of Private William Tucker. What are your thoughts? Were you moved by his story? How would it affect you if you discovered a story like this about your own ancestors? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. When we discover stories about our own ancestors, especially like this one, history becomes tremendously more real. The battles that we read about or drive by begin to have a different impact on us, and we are bestowed with the deeper, enlightened understanding. Discovering and preserving stories like this is a passion of ours, and we are so proud to be able to honor Private William Tucker by discovering him and sharing his story with all of his descendants and all of you. And remember, family tree nuts, let our nuts find the nuts in your family tree.